We made it.
We made it. Technology.
Hassle for me as well. I'm not very good in.
I'm useless. I'm really, really bad. So anyway, we managed.
Yeah. Okay. It's very nice and pleasure talking with you here, and thanks for your accepting our invitation. Can you hear my voice? Is that okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you fine.
Very nice. Okay, how's it going? How's the weather? Is it good?
Actually, today it's a very nice day. Sunny,
Okay.
not too warm, but it's okay. Spring is on its way, so things are looking up. Things are looking good, I think.
Yeah. You're in your tower?
I am. I'm on the 4th floor in my kitchen.
Yeah. That tower. Give me some.
Yeah.
So, well, I had a couple of questions and about your before you start rugby. Then that's it. It's very easy. Yeah. And my first question is that could you tell a little bit about your childhood and then the first time you did a travel on your own and your first experience with motorcycle?
Oh my goodness. Right. Well, both my parents were doctors, and we lived in central London. I was sent off to boarding school when I was very young, because both my parents worked full time, so we were all sent off to boarding school. I was actually expelled from school when I was 16, and that's probably where, because I was sent to somewhere in London to finish off my exams, and it was there that I met these people who all rode motorbikes, and I think. And that was probably the first time. So when I was 16, I rode my first bike, which I didn't own. It was a friend of mine's bike. And then a year later, one of my other friends was... Sorry?
What was the bike you rode first?
Yeah, the very first bike I rode was a Husqvarna. It was an off-road bike. And then the first bike I bought was about a year later, which was a Yamaha YV100, because in those days in England you could buy a bike up to 250cc and just ride it, without taking any tests or anything. So I bought myself a Yamaha, but I just used it to ride around London. It was just a quick, easy way to get around London. And I didn't really imagine motorbikes were going to become such a big part of my life. It was just sort of cheap, way to get around town. And about a year later, I bought a slightly bigger bike. So I bought a Honda 250, and I had that for about a year. And then about a year later, I ended up buying my BMW 600. So it was a 1974, so it was already quite an old bike. So I bought that in 1979. So it was a BMW R60/6. And it was really when I bought that bike that I suddenly realised the travelling potential of a motorbike. So the first trip I did is I rode up to Scotland on my own. Then I rode around Ireland. Then the following summer I did a trip to around BMW 750. 75/5, and I rode it from the west coast to the east coast. And it was somewhere on that trip I got this slightly crazy, mad idea. Wouldn't it be amazing if you could ride your motorbike around the world? So it was a slow, it was something that happened slowly.
Slowly. Okay. And for the next question, you said something, you answered this, you said in the US you decided to go around the world with BMW, and yeah. How was the process for applying visas and insurance taxes?
Well, visas, because you couldn't, because obviously it was, I did the trip from 1982 to 1984, so it was long before internet, mobile phones, and so it was much harder to find out about countries. It was very, just trying to get maps about countries. So I very much did the trip in stages. I decided to, because I'd ridden across America the year before, I decided to start off with riding across, the States. So I shipped my bike to New York. And the other reason was because I only had £2,500 when I left England, which I knew wasn't going to be enough money. But I think if you always wait until you have, the right bike, the right gear, the right money, the time is right, then you never do it. Then you never leave. And I just decided I had to get away and I wanted to do the trip. So I just left with what I had, and I decided I would just make it up as I went along. So I shipped my bike to New York and went across America, and then I stopped in Australia where I worked for 7 months to earn some more money to get home. But so I took each country very, very much. When I was in Australia, I would then start to make inquiries about the next country and if I needed visas and things like that. With insurance, I think I got insurance when I was riding across America. I managed to get insurance when I was in Australia, but after I left Australia, I had no insurance at all. Absolutely none. So I rode all through the Far East, India, Nepal, Pakistan, Iran, to everywhere with absolutely no insurance because you couldn't get it. It didn't exist. I mean, I did have medical insurance for myself, but how useful it would have been, I don't know.
You never used your insurance? I mean, about your motorcycle or...
Well, I did have a bad accident when I was in Australia, and I did manage, and the ambulance had to come 189 miles, I think, to pick me up because I was out in the outback in Australia, and there was quite a big bill that the ambulance charged, and I did get the insurance company to pay that. But the rest of the time, I mean, when you're in certain countries like India or Nepal, or if you have an accident, then and you're in the middle of the countryside and you run over somebody's or you damage somebody's bicycle or something or car, there's no point waving a piece of paper that's written in English because they don't understand it anyway. They just want to be paid, they want the money, they want it now. So having insurance was almost pointless because people, because the world felt a much larger place then. I mean, now we're all, very much more connected, but in those days it wasn't like that at all. And the chance of some Indian farmer trying to claim some money back from some insurance company in London or something, it was just ridiculous. It was never going to happen. So insurance I didn't have.
What was your family and friends' reaction when first time about your
yeah. Well, my family my parents were very, they had a very, they almost pretended that I wasn't doing the trip. I think it was sort of easier for my mum. She was obviously terribly, worried, about me. And I think, you have to also, remember that when I was travelling, I used to try and phone home from a call box, from a public phone, once a month. And that's it. That was the only contact that I had with my family.
Letter and postal cards.
Yeah, I used to pick up letters. So I used to get my family and friends to send letters to like a main post office. And then I would pick mail up every 2 or 3 months. And that was it. That's the only contact I had with home. So all the time in between, I was completely on my own. And I think my mum found it very difficult. It was very hard for her and I think her way of dealing with it was almost in her mind, pretending I wasn't doing the trip, and so she just completely ignored it. And my father was a bit of a strange man. He was a psychiatrist, and he was very, shall we say, eccentric, and he very much lived in his own world, and so he didn't really understand. It was very, very odd, and I think most of my friends thought I would be back home in 6 weeks' time. I don't think any of them actually thought I would do it.
So that's very nice. And for the next question, please tell us one of your interesting and one of your unpleasant or sad memories. You can choose. There are a lot, I know, but
one of my best memories and one of my saddest memories.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, probably the best thing that happened on my trip was meeting, after I'd been travelling on my own for nearly a year and a half, I met this Dutch motorcyclist called Robert, and then the whole trip was completely changed. Sort of suddenly not travelling on my own, which was really quite hard work, when you have to do everything yourself, make all the decisions, sort out all the problems, always fix your bike. And so to have somebody to travel with made a huge difference. It also helped that we fell in love halfway through our time together, which was great. So it suddenly turned from a sort of endurance test, and it was hard work. It really was hard work a lot of the time, to almost a holiday. So that was probably the highlight of my trip, was when I was travelling in northern India, up in Leh and Ladakh. And we had the most fantastic time. It was brilliant. So that was probably...
He started in Australia or something like that?
Yeah, he actually emigrated to Australia. So he shipped all of his things, plus his motorbike, out to Sydney, I think. And then he decided he didn't want to live there, so he shipped all his things home and decided to ride his bike overland. So he'd been on the road, I think, for a similar amount of time that I had. And I think we kind of missed each other about 3 or 4 times by about 100 miles. But, in those days, you didn't, there was no social media. You had no idea who else was on the, And he was the only other motorcyclist that I met throughout the whole of my trip, because people just didn't ride. It wasn't that common, 40 years ago, for people to ride motorbikes around the world. I mean, you just didn't see other people on the road at all. So we were very lucky to meet when we did, I think. And the saddest, well, I had quite a few sad moments. One in New Zealand, but I don't really want. I mean, it's in the book, but I don't really want to talk about it.
Something that we can't find in your book. As I told you, I haven't read your book because it's hard to find in Iran. It's beyond my English for sure. But many people here, they have read your book. If you just choose some memories that you didn't mention in your book, that would be perfect.
Well, no, I actually mentioned pretty much everything in my book. I was very honest in my book. If you do read it, I will have to send you a copy.
Thank you. I have Lois Price's book. She sent.
Yeah, I will send you a copy. Yeah.
Thank you.
But anyway, when you read my book, you will see I am very, very honest. I decided when I was writing the book that I would, that it was important to include everything, all the bad as well as the good. I wasn't. Sorry?
How many pages included in your book?
312.
Okay.
So it's about 104,000 words, I think, 105,000 words. But and I'm very honest in that, when I'm frightened or I'm anxious or I'm nervous or I'm worried or I'm very honest about it. It's not, and I think showing your vulnerabilities is very important, because I think we all have them, and I don't, and I think anybody who even now embarks on a round the world trip or a long motorcycle journey, you're always going to have fears and apprehensions and worries about, is your bike going to break down, or it's even with all the technology now that we have, I'm sure you people still have fears, and I think it's good to be honest about that. So I was very, very honest in my book. But I had some pretty bad, I had a very bad accident in Australia, which I ended up in hospital.
During this accident?
Well, I was riding on a dirt road out in the outback, and I went into a big hole in the road, a big pothole, and my front wheel went in and kind of got stuck, and then the back of the bike just flipped over, so I kind of cartwheeled it down the road. But I landed on my head, so I had bad concussion, and I was knocked out for about three days. I had another bad accident in Thailand when I hit a dog. That's a whole other story. And I then got very ill. I got hepatitis. I got dysentery. I had a lot of trouble trying to get out of India. It was up and down. There was a lot of highs and a lot of lows.
Okay. And for the next question, did you get robbed?
Did I get what?
Robbed.
Robbed. I did actually. I had everything stolen when I was in Singapore, and it was because I travelled up through Indonesia, and I was like really I was really careful, and I was always wearing my money belt, and really, you know. And then when I got to Singapore, because it all seemed like a modern city. It was all, you know, big skyscrapers and shopping centres, and it was all like going into a kind of Western world. And I was sort of lulled into this sense of it being safe, and I put my guard down. And I had all my money belt stolen, so it was all my money, my traveller's checks, my passport, all my bike keys, and my registration, all my shipping documents. It was it took me about 6 weeks in Singapore just to replace everything. It was a nightmare.
Such a nightmare, And for the number 52. Yeah, which border crossing were a hassle?
I can say without a shadow of a doubt, India. Getting out of India and into Pakistan. It took me nearly 2 months to get across the border. I was unlucky that I was there. It was the storming of the Golden Temple in Amritsar, and which was in the Punjab state. And so, although the border was open, the Punjab state was closed to Westerners. So you weren't allowed to travel through the Punjab state unless you had this sort of permit. And when it was all very complicated, but when we were up in Leh and Ladakh having a really nice time, that was when the storming of the Golden Temple happened. So we were like trapped north of the Punjab, and we decided just to try and get to the border without a permit. So we managed to get to the border, and then they wouldn't let us through the border because we hadn't been even though we were out of the Punjab, because we'd done something we weren't allowed to do, i.e. travel through the Punjab, they sent us all the way back to Delhi through the Punjab to get a permit to enter the Punjab. I mean, you couldn't make it up. So anyway, so then we drove 500 or 600 miles back to Delhi. We then spent 6 weeks in Delhi trying to get a permit, which we realised actually didn't exist because they'd never issued a permit to anybody. So then Robert and I decided to go back to the border and just go through all the roadblocks, and we just didn't stop. We just kept going, and we just thought we'll get to no man's land. And we got out of India again, got into no man's land, and then we were very, very lucky that basically a document that I had in my passport fell out, and the people at the border thought it was a permit because they'd never seen the permit, so they agreed to let us through, but technically we didn't have a permit, so we shouldn't have got through. But we were just very lucky that we managed to get out. But it was a very stressful time because my money. I had this limited amount of money. I didn't have any cards or I couldn't get any more money. All I had was what I had in my money belt. It wasn't possible to get money sent out to me. So I had to get home on what I had. And being stuck in India for 6 weeks, longer than I needed was an expense that I couldn't really afford. So it was a very frustrating time. It was very so that was probably the hardest part.
So you're architect, did you use your architectural knowledge or skills in your trip, or did you make money during your journey?
Yeah, I worked for an architect's practice when I was in Sydney. So after I travelled across America, and then I went to New Zealand. So I think I found the roads in Australia quite harsh. I found it a very harsh climate, and the other part was probably in Western Pakistan when I was travelling through the desert in Baluchistan. That was quite tough because a few years earlier the main overland route had been through to the north, and then the Russians had invaded Afghanistan, and so the main overland route had sort of formed this makeshift route across the desert, and so there wasn't really a road. It was just tracks in the sand and the desert, and that was quite. So
the longest distance you rode was in Australia, and
it probably was in Australia. Actually, I probably did about 600 or 700 miles a day. I mean, I can't remember. I didn't really, but I can remember crossing the border from Pakistan into Iran, and the roads in Iran were absolutely beautiful. Oh, they were amazing. They were the best roads. They were the best roads I'd seen since I left them. I don't know. I mean, they were just fantastic. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful roads. And it was a joy. It was an absolute joy to ride on.
What was your first expression about Iran?
Well, Iran I was very nervous about. I think in the early 80s, it was very hard to find out anything about the country at all. And I think, there'd been a lot of negative press. The country was actually at war with Iraq in 1984 when I was travelling through. So I think the country was in a very strange place, if you know what I mean. I think the Shah had just been kicked out 2 or 3 years earlier. I sensed the people were finding it hard to readjust. I don't know. I only because of the war. I was only given like a 7-day visa, so I had to ride from the border of Pakistan to the border of Turkey in 7 days.
Which cities did you visit in Iran? I saw a picture from Isfahan and maybe other cities.
Yeah, I did. I went to Isfahan,
maybe Shiraz. No, not Shiraz. Maybe Kerman.
It was so quick, to be quite honest with you. Sorry, I've got a map here.
Did you visit any
So I went to Isfahan, Nain, Naein.
Yeah, Nain.
Nain, and then I exited through
Bazagan.
Bazagan.
You have to, or you needed to cover yourself while you're riding, or it was okay?
I did, yes. Because I had a full face helmet, To be honest, during the day, I just left it on. I didn't take it off all day. It was just easier. I found in a lot of countries it was easier because in those days women didn't really ride motorbikes, and I felt much safer because people assumed I was a man.
Yeah.
And that made me feel safer. And so, in a lot of countries, I would just keep my helmet on most of the time. But when I was in Iran, I did go. I mean, I remember in Isfahan, we had one day of being a tourist, and I went to the Blue Mosque and everything, and I had to wear, obviously I didn't have to, but I wore a headscarf and covered up and everything. But I did find the Iranian people incredibly friendly and kind. But at the same time, I felt as if they were quite frightened. And maybe this is just an impression that I got that might be completely wrong. But like, for example, I would go and sit in a cafe, to have a cup of tea or something, or coffee, and then the owners would kind of rush out and sort of move me on, as almost they didn't want a Westerner to be seen sitting in front of their restaurant on the street. And so they would kind of leave. And then they would kind of whisper and say, round the back. And so I'd go round the back, and they'd let me in through the back door, and then I'd sit and have lunch with their family. So, it was almost as if they wanted to be as hospitable as they could be, but they were sort of frightened, or they didn't know whether they could or they should or what to do. And so it was, as I said, it was so soon after the Shah had been thrown out of the country. I think must have been huge changes at that time. And I'm sure it was very, very hard for the people to readjust and, understand really. So.
Do you know Omitvar brothers, Iranian explorers? Like Omitvar brothers.
No.
Haven't heard about them? They explored the world like 60, 70 years ago on two motorcycles, muchless. I think
wow.
Muchless 500.
Wow.
Yeah, they explored on their motorbike for 7 years around the world, and again with a Citroen car, 3 years to Africa.
When did they do it? What years?
It's 60s, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Now one of them living in Chile, Abdullah, and his son in Tehran, almost 8 years old, or maybe 85.
Yeah.
They are quite old now.
Yeah. Wow.
And so let's ask some questions from other travelers, like solo and bikers. Did you have reverse culture shock when your trip ended?
Sorry, Sorry, say that.
How was coming home like for you?
Oh, coming home was terrible. Absolutely terrible. And I think because I had kind of built it up in my head as it was going to be this amazing homecoming, and I was going to be welcomed, and people, my friends and my family, were actually going to be interested in what I'd done. And actually, they weren't at all. And so it was I got very depressed, actually, for about a year or two, and it took me a long time to... And I think because, life on the road was very intense, and, it was very exciting. Although a lot of it was, sorting out problems, fixing your bike, all this, but it was very intense, and I think... And then when I came home, it was just kind of, everything was just kind of just gone, and I just found it really hard to adjust, very, very hard to adjust. But then eventually I went back and I finished off my architecture training, and then I was getting a bit restless again. I wanted a new project. And then I ended up finding this water tower. So that was the next 7 years of my life, doing all of the works, the building works, and turning the water tower into my home. So, it wasn't easy. But I think lots of people experience that. I think,
I think that point the solo woman bikers or biker asked you something. Another one from Poland. If you could do it again, what would you change or improve?
Well, I would definitely take a newer bike. I mean, when I started my trip, my bike was already 8 years old, and it had 45,000 miles on it when I started. So it was already a fairly well-used bike, and I think the trip and all the accidents and the bad roads really took their toll on her, and certainly the last 6 or 7 months of the journey, it was a real struggle just to keep her going every day. I mean, every single day I would have to do some makeshift repair or, fix something, or it's always something. From Pakistan all the way back to London, I had no back brake at all. The front brake was very iffy. It sometimes worked, sometimes didn't work. My clutch was giving out, so I had to ride the bike without using the clutch. I had no headlight or tail light indicators. Everything was starting to fall apart on her. So. And of course, you couldn't get any spare parts. Everything was I just used to have to kind of make up things to keep her going. So I definitely would use I wouldn't take such an old bike to start with. The other thing I'd do is I'd learn a lot more about the electrics on my bike, because engines I'm okay, I can fix engines, but electrics.
Are you before your trip about your bike, about mechanical stuff?
Well, I kind of taught myself before I left, so I bought myself just a Haynes manual and some tools. And I basically stripped most of the engine down before I left, which I wanted to do anyway, because I wanted to start the journey, with new gaskets and seals and cables, and so I sort of replaced everything that I thought could possibly be, I would obviously need to do on the journey. So it was an exercise of learning about the bike, learning how to take it apart, how it all worked. So I just took the engine apart and then put it back together again before I left. So I had a reasonably good knowledge before I left, but the electrics, I've never understood electrics. I just don't I don't get it. But
what about a very strange or unbelievable memory you had during your trip? Like, for example, I don't know, something unbelievable.
I think I was very lucky sometimes on my trip. I mean, there were certain things that happened which, for example, when I was in Australia, when I was riding across Australia, and I had been riding for hundreds and hundreds of miles, hadn't seen anything. I mean, not a building, not a person, nothing. It was just absolutely flat, barren land for hundreds and hundreds of miles. And my bike caught fire. And so I kind of jumped off, and I was trying to put the flames out and everything. Anyway, and it ended up that my whole wiring loom had caught fire and burnt out all of the electrics. And I looked down the road, and I thought, what am I going to do? And I looked down the road, and there was a little blue sign that said auto electrician. And that was the first sign of anything I'd seen in 100 miles. And so my bike just happened to break down within 400 yards of an auto electrician who was actually from England as well. So it was it was just very strange, these things. And when my alternator broke in northern Thailand, and I just happened to break down right outside this big alternator factory, and they took me in and they sorted it all out and fixed it for me. So I was very lucky where these kind of strange things happened. Or maybe my bike was just very good at breaking down when she knew there was help at hand. I don't know.
My friend here let me ask a question, which is, I think, nice. How did the journey change your outlook on life?
Oh my goodness, completely, absolutely, completely. I was very young when I left. I was only 23 when I started my trip, so I was very young. And I mean, I suppose when I got back from my trip, it made me, it made me realise there wasn't anything I couldn't do. I could cope with anything, any situation. I could deal with anything. And I would never take no as an answer. If somebody said I can't do something, I just kind of course I can. I can remember, for example, when I was going to buy the water tower, and I had to get the permissions to turn it into a house, and the local council basically said that they would never give me planning permission to turn it into a house, and I just ignored it, and I bought it anyway, and I just thought, I'll deal with it, I'll sort out the problems, there's always a way. And so I think it just gave me this sort of belief in myself that I was able to do anything, actually. If I put my mind to it, I could tackle anything. And I think I learned a lot about myself, about my limits, about the world, about other people, about situations.
Did you learn kind of language or, I don't know, a new skill during?
No, I wasn't. No, I have to admit I'm not very good at learning languages. I find it quite hard to. I'm actually dyslexic. I don't know whether that's something. It's where you find it very hard to read, and you mix up all the letters in my mind. And so I don't find learning other languages very easy. It's a very hard thing for me to do. So I didn't really, but I learned a lot of life skills. I think, the reading people, when you're trying to get across a border and you have to try and talk your way through the border, and you just learn how to deal with people and situations, and all of that has been invaluable in my life and my work and my architecture. A lot of the projects that I do in my work are the most complicated, challenging projects because no other architect will take them on. But because all they see is all the problems. All I see is it's like another, it's another challenge for me to do, and so it's just the way you look at things, and so it completely changed my outlook really on and shaped the rest of my life.
And did you write like diary every day or every couple of days during your trip? Because like in the evenings you didn't, I didn't have a phone to play with or social media or my blog to write. It was pretty boring. So I did keep a diary. I wasn't that good. I started off being fairly good at writing it, but in the end I didn't write. But what I used to do is I used to send these micro cassette tapes home. So when I was in Sydney in Australia, my father sent me out a micro cassette recorder, which was all new. It was the latest thing, and so I used to record it into this. And so like every night I'd talk into it for sort of 15-20 minutes, and when the tape was full, I would post it home. And for some bizarre reason, I kept all my tapes, which I've still got, and all my letters I kept. I sent all my letters home from all my friends and my family. I sent all my shipping documents, all my paperwork, all my customs, everything I sent home, and I've no idea why. I just kept it all, and I was very organised at doing that. And so, but even with all that, writing my book was quite difficult because it was 35 years ago. It's a long time, and it was a very strange experience reading because I'd never read my diaries again since I got back from my trip. I'd never listened to any of my tapes, and hearing my voice in the outback in Australia when I was 23 years old, when I'm 60, it's very odd. It's a very strange experience. It was good, but it was strange. It completely changed my life. Absolutely, completely. The tapes and letters and all the stuff you sent on the trip to write your book. I think you wrote your book 2 years ago or 1 year?
2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah. I don't know why I sent it home. I didn't have the thought when I was doing the trip. I didn't think I was going to write a book. I didn't do it all to write a book. I just didn't want to throw any of it away. So when I got to the end of America, I just packaged all my letters that my mum and my family had sent me. I packaged everything up, and I just posted it home. And then when I got to the end of Australia, I posted it home. End of Southeast Asia, posted it home. So it was in kind of chunks. And then when I got back home, because I had such a hard time trying to readjust when I got back home, I just put it all in a box, in a cardboard box, which is where it stayed for 30 years, and I never even looked at it. I never opened the books. I didn't look at any of the photos. I didn't read nothing. It just in a box, back of a cupboard, sat there for 30 years. And I got on with the rest of my life. You know, I was building my water tower. I was.
Somebody suggested you to write a book, or it was your opinion?
Well, that's another strange series of events, because nobody knew about my story at all, apart from my friends and family. So I'd done this trip, and so Andy asked Paul to write a short story about my journey. And so Paul wrote a short article that he sent to BMW, and it was actually the photograph, and as part of the article, it included this picture of me, which was taken when I got back from my trip, and there was something about that picture which seemed to sort of capture people's imagination, and the picture was and the story was kind of shared and blogged and ping-ponged all over the internet, and it was picked up by an agent in Hollywood, of all things, who wanted to buy who read my story and wanted to buy the rights to my story to make a film. And so, you know, I'd gone from nobody wanting to know anything to Hollywood wanting to make a film. So it was completely bizarre. So anyway, I was flown out to Hollywood, and I spent a week there meeting all these producers and script writers and whatever. And I think then I decided that actually the first thing I had to do was to write a book. Because I wanted there to be a true and accurate account of what my trip was about and what I'd done. And I didn't want Hollywood to get hold of it and make some kind of film that was kind of half true but not really true or whatever. So I said thanks but no thanks to Hollywood, and I came back home, and then I got everything out of my cardboard box, and I spent the next 2.5 years, and my book was finally published in 2017. And I think it was because I suddenly realised that people were interested in what I had done. And I think I'd gone for 25 years or 30 years thinking that nobody was going to be interested, because nobody was interested when I got home in 1984. Nobody wanted to know. And so I just thought nobody's interested. So I thought, okay, that's fine. So, I just put everything away and got on with my life. So,
nobody, for example, a reporter or something, no one had an interview with you, or nobody? From radio, television, magazine? Nobody
wanted to know. Nobody wanted to know.
Okay.
It was weird. It was very strange. There was an article, I think, in a magazine in Europe somewhere, Germany, I think, in 1988, so 4 years after I got back, there was an article in a German magazine. But people just, I don't know, I think it was almost too much for people to understand and absorb, and they just didn't, it was just too much for people to think of a woman riding around the world on a motorbike. It was kind of, and also in the UK in the early 80s, I mean, the motorbike world, certainly here, was a very male, it was pretty unfriendly to female riders. I mean, there weren't many female riders anyway, but I certainly never felt particularly welcome. Even when I started riding when I started riding around London, before I left on my trip, and I'd pull up at bike shops or whatever, and you could see people just kind of laughing and sniggering, and it was just, I was just a big joke. They couldn't, it was almost too much for them to imagine that a woman could actually enjoy riding a motorbike. It was just, they couldn't understand it. It was just too much. So, fortunately, I didn't care about what people thought, and I did my own thing anyway. But it was quite tough. It was, you had to be quite, I'm doing what I want to do, and I don't care what anybody else says or thinks. And that's not always easy when you're young,
Yeah, and ma'am, we have just almost 5 minutes.
Oh, right, okay.
Just two short questions. Did you ever cry on your trip?
Cry?
As short?
Did I ever?
Yes, cry.
Cry. I did cry. I cried. Yeah, I cried a few times.
And for the last question, just, I think, 5 minutes. What question would you like me to ask you that I didn't?
No, I can't think of any. I know you asked me to think of one, but I can't think of one. I think you asked me all the right questions. Really.
Yeah.
I can't think of one. I suppose, would I recommend it to anybody? Absolutely yes. I don't know.
Yeah, we just remind 20 seconds. So it was a pleasure to have a chat with you. And again, thanks for accepting my invitation. Pleasure.
Thank you.
One day in London or England.
I hope so.